Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mike from M&R Automotive. Today we're installing a 40-inch light bar into the GMC Sierra 1500. First thing we're going to do is remove the two torque screws that are holding the hood latch. It's a T15. So we're going to go ahead and take those two out. After removing the second, this one should just slide forward. Next, we're going to take out all the push pins. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total. Get your screwdriver underneath, pry it up, and when the pin goes up, that's when the whole pin comes out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this is the last one. Pin up. 10. After you get all the pins, you can just lift this piece up and move it to the side. After removing the top shield, I'm actually going to reinsert the hood latch just in case the hood gets closed. At least we'll be able to open it. I've had it where in the past I haven't reinstalled it and had to prop it open with a really long screwdriver. So since I don't want to mess with it, I'm just going to go ahead and just put this back. Next thing we're going to do is remove the top bolts. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're 10 millimeter. 3. And the last one is 4. Now we're in the inside of the fender. We're going to remove the two more torque screws. They are also the T15. After doing that, we're going to go ahead and pry the fender flare off. And just grab it on the bottom and just work the clips off by prying against it. Let's get one more. Next thing we want to do is remove this bolt. I think it's a 7 millimeter. I'm using a 9/32. I think it's the equivalent. And we're going to go ahead and pry these two pieces apart. Let me see if there's anything on the inside that I need to remove. Yes, there is. There's two screws that are holding the fender and the bumper together. So either a 7 millimeter or 9/32. Let's get this. It's hard to get in here. Take my word for it. Okay, so I went ahead and loosened it with my ratchet. Now I'm gonna just grab the socket head itself, and I'm gonna use my fingers to get that screw out. There's not too much space in there, so that's the main reason why I like to do that technique. Here's the first one. I'll go ahead and take out. There's one more. There's 2 total ones in the back. So I got it started with a wrench. Then I'm gonna take the socket and get the rest of it out using my fingers. Here's the second screw. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Follow me. Start with the 2 torque screws again. That's 2. Now we're going to pry this flare off, just to get to the one screw that we removed on the driver's side. Okay, lost the clip. These just reinsert if you end up losing them. They kind of go into a groove. There we go. Now I'm going to take out this bolt. And let's not forget the 2 that are holding the fender and the bumper together. So one is here and one is a little higher. So just like I did on the driver's side, I'm going to loosen it with my wrench and then get the rest of it out with my fingers. So this is the first one. Okay, I got it turning. And I'll just take the socket. Alright, so that's the first one. Almost there. I'm just getting that screw out. Yep. Now I'm getting ready to separate the bumper from the fender. So I'm going to go ahead and just pry it at the part where we took out the initial bolt. And just press it apart and also pull it down a little bit to unlock these. Alright, we got all this. We're going to go ahead and unplug the fog light kit because it comes off with that trim piece. And another thing we're going to do is separate the harness. There we go. This side is done. Let's do the same thing on the drivers. Get your hand underneath that screw that we've taken out initially. Pull it towards yourself and a little bit lower, just to separate and get these clips out. One more. There we go. There we go. So same thing, we're gonna go ahead and take the harness off. And take this off. So the last thing that is this trim piece is held on, there's two clips here, and there's also clips that go along the bottom edge. I think there's 7 of them. Go ahead and try to see if I can pry it from underneath like this and get those clips to unlatch. So first thing I want to do is get this trim piece off. It's also held on clips. Actually, let's try to get to them later. So I did get one, the first one, and now I'm going to work and try to see if I can get the other ones. See, I already heard a couple. And get it from the bottom and just pry it forward. See these clips on the sides? These are the ones that I'm trying to detach. So grab them one by one and work your way towards the middle. There's a harness here. We can pull this out. And then I probably just have one more here. And there we go. It all on clips. And the harder ones I'll show you. So these are the ones across the edge that I was prying against. You can go underneath the truck to release them. In this particular installation, I found it was easier to just pry them one by one, and they all came out.
Yes.
So now that we got the front trim piece off, it exposes 3 bolts. 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna remove those. These are 10 millimeters as well. And those should be the last ones for the grill to come off.
There you go.
So there's little grooves here, so pry the top tabs up. That's going to release the top portion of the grill. And it just comes off like that. Now that we removed the grill from the vehicle, we can go ahead and install the M&R brackets that are going to be housing the either 1 or 2 light bars. For this installation video, we're going to be doing 1 light bar. In the kit, you'll get a right driver side and a passenger side bracket, mounting bolts for the light bars, as well as the appropriate spacers for the vehicle. So let me show you how to install these. There's 2 bolts inside the grill. We're going to start with the passenger side. We're going to remove these. We're going to slide the M&R bracket, and then we're going to reinstall the same bolts. So we get the passenger side bracket. We're going to feed the same bolts that we've taken out in the previous step, and we're going to go ahead and reinstall them. So that's the top. Let's get the bottom bolt. We're We're gonna do the same thing on the driver's side. On the driver's side, because there's a harness involved, it's easier to feed the bracket through first and then install the bolts. 1 and 2. And same thing, we're going to go ahead and tighten these. Notice that the light bar bracket has a slotted system on here, so you can position the light bar as high or as low as you want within the grill opening. We're going to go ahead and get the mounting bolt as well as the washer, feed it through the outside, put the necessary spacer, and that's going to thread into the light bar. We're only going to hand tighten it because we're going to align the light bar within the opening before we do the final tie downs. Same thing on the passenger side. We're going to slide the bolt with a washer. We're going to put the spacer, and then we are going to thread it into the light bar itself. So now that we're looking at the grill, our goal is to install the light bar either through this opening or this opening of the grill. The slot system of the bracket will allow you to slide the light bar up and down to accommodate it. Let's go ahead and shoot for the bottom opening. We're going to go ahead and finger tighten this to see if we can have the appropriate height. We're going to mock up the grill just to make sure we have the opening correctly. You don't have to click it all the way in. You can just align it and see. Just from looking, this side has to be brought up maybe 1/8 of an inch. So as we tighten the position of the light bar, I'm going to try to move it slightly. So we're going to go ahead and move this one slightly, tighten it, and see how that looks with the grill on. I think it's very straight, so we can proceed with tightening everything down. Okay. Now we're going to do one final test before we start the wiring. As you notice, the grill opening that we decided was this slot of the grill. The light bar can also be used with the same mount to install it on the higher one as well. Now it's time for wiring. We installed a 40-inch amber color light bar. Because it is a single color light bar, the wiring only has 2 wires. There is a positive, which is the red, and a black, which is a negative. On the dual color light bars, there's going to be an extra wire here that provides the power source for the Amber DRL. We're going to go ahead and use a generic wiring harness to complete this installation and take the button inside the cab. Let me show you the wiring harness that we're going to be using for this particular install. This one comes with a single button and a single power source. So this button goes inside the cab. We're going to take it through the firewall. It does disconnect here, so you don't have to drag the whole entire button. You can just disconnect it, bring this side in, and from the inside of the cab, connect it back up. This button takes you to the relay. From the relay, there's 2 things. There's a positive and a ground wire that has to be connected, and there's also the rest of the wiring that's going to be connected to the light bar. So we have a black and red on the harness, and we have a black and red on the light bar itself. We're just going to go ahead and use crimp connectors to get these together. Let me show you where I'll be going through the firewall to get this installed. Alright, I'm just looking through the boot. I think the easiest thing is to puncture the boot that goes around the steering column into the engine bay. We'll poke it through some scissors. The little trick that I like to do, I like to put needle nose pliers in there, spread them apart, put the harness in, and then pull it through the opening. I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So right now I'm going to go ahead and poke through the rubber boot around the steering column. So it's in. I'm going to go see in the engine bay and see if it came out.
The wire, that's where you want me to put the wiring harness in. Clamp? Huh? Clamp it. Okay. Yeah, I think that should work. Oh, you got it. The other side.
So this is the other side that I pulled out using my needle nose pliers. I'm going to go ahead and plug the harness back in. And now we have a functioning button inside the cab. The only thing we're going to have to worry about is things in the engine bay to connect the power and to connect it to the light bar. This one we can drag along the inside and underneath with zip ties. I personally like this position here, and it comes with double-sided tape. You can also move it in other positions through the center console if you wanted to, and that's just a personal preference. So let's go back into the engine bay and connect the power to the battery and the ground, as well as the light bar. So now that we have the trigger wire going through the firewall, it's coming up to the relay. We have to give power and ground to the harness itself. We're going to go ahead and use this bolt here on the right. It's a 10 millimeter bolt. We're going to use that to feed the eyelid through and reinstall it. Alright, so the ground is finished. One thing that we noticed, we're going to have to go ahead and extend the power wire of the harness all the way to the battery, which is on the passenger side. For vehicles that have the battery on the driver's side, this wiring harness would be a little more convenient, but because on the Sierra 1500 it's on the passenger side, we're going to go ahead and extend that wire. We sourced some 12 gauge wire that we're going to use for the power. I'm going to go ahead and strip it. I'm going to use a crimp connector. Crimp the wire. That's on the wire side, and I'm going to crimp it to the red wire, which is on the harness side. This wire we're going to go ahead and extend to the power wire here, to the battery, and on this end I'll put an eyelid instead of a crimp connector. Eyelid, I mean, it's still considered a crimp connector, just not a, I think, butt connector is what they call it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take off the cover from the battery, and we'll go ahead and install it on this wire here. We're going to go ahead and use this bolt from the battery, slide our eyelid through it, and reinstall the same bolt. Correction, this is called a nut, not a bolt. So the last thing we have to do is connect the power wire from the wiring harnesses to the light bars themselves. So we are going to use crimp connectors. So the connector they have here, I'm going to remove. And we're just going to go red to red and black to black. Crimp this here. So now that we have the crimp connectors on the harness side, we'll go black to black and red to red and crimp the light bars to it. As you crimp it, make sure the wire doesn't come out. And we'll go red to red for the power. Before I go ahead and do all the zip ties and make everything nice and pretty, I'll go ahead and test the button itself to make sure we connected everything correctly.
Nice Amber.
Now that everything is working properly, we're going to go ahead and clean up the engine bay. We're going to use some zip ties and shrink connectors in order to tidy this back up and put the panels and put the truck back into its original shape. Thank you guys for watching, and take a look at our other videos.